My name is Gabriel Silva. I speak some languages, and today I'm going to talk about something that is quite interesting for language learners, I believe. And one thing that I come across quite often, not just online, but when I interact with people, is fear. Fear of speaking, your foreign language. So let's say that you're learning a foreign language and you just want to engage with people and talk to them. This is something that everyone faces at one point or another. You're afraid of speaking and making mistakes, right? And I think that personally, I can talk a lot about this because of the fact that I really love to talk to people, even if my level in the language is really basic and I know that I won't be able to say much. I know that my accent will probably be terrible because, especially when I've just started learning a language. So that's one thing that I've become good at overcoming, this fear of, engaging people in a foreign language. Right off the bat, I think that it's really important for us to first of all realize that when we approach somebody and we're gonna try to speak in someone else's language, we're trying to speak in their language, usually, 99 times out of 100, the person's gonna be happy to see that you're trying to speak in their language. One time out of 100 times, they may be in a bad mood and I don't know, that can happen too, right? But the vast majority of the time, people will be quite pleased that you're trying to speak in their language, regardless of your level, right? Like if you're at a very basic level, perhaps your pronunciation's really not that great, it doesn't matter. Most people are going to be quite pleased. So I think that that's something really important for us to really embrace, because with that in mind, I think that the fear of making mistakes, right, will go down a bit. And we're going to be more willing to engage with even random strangers in conversation in their foreign language. And keep in mind, of course, that I always say this, but it's so important that languages are one of the best possible ways to connect with somebody. It just brings down the barriers. It's just crazy how it happens and how effective it is at taking down walls between people. Even like social barriers. The second that you start speaking a foreign language, usually it's like an instant connection, and it's so cool, regardless of level. Even if you're at a beginner level, basic level, it doesn't matter. Another thing that about really, regarding fear of making mistakes, I think that personally, I've developed immunity for that kind of fear, because I know for a fact that I'll make a ton of mistakes. Depending on the foreign language, right? So if I at a more advanced level in a specific language, I'll make less mistakes. If I've just started, sometimes the conversation won't even go that far because I don't have big enough of vocabulary. So I know that I'll make mistakes. So I think that that's something that you can kind of embrace as well, the idea that you won't be perfect, and that's okay. Because nobody needs to be perfect anyway in any language, right? Even if for example, in someone's native language, people make mistakes as well all the time, right? So why do we need to be perfect in a foreign language that we're trying to learn? It makes no sense. So I think that it's really important to embrace that thought that we won't be perfect. Of course, that we want to become pretty good. We want to, strive for excellence. We want to, in the long run, make as little mistakes as possible. But it's really important for us to understand that, especially when we're getting started, if we're still at a point where we don't have a lot of confidence in the language that we're trying to learn, it's really important to try to get out there and speak. There are great polyglots who say, you know what, you should just sit and absorb the language first and not worry about speaking, and then later go and, talk to people in a foreign language. I get that philosophy, and I think that that's interesting. Personally, however, I like to try to talk to people as soon as I can after I start learning a foreign language, just to get some feedback, to get to get some practice. So I find it important. And like I always say, if you're shy and you don't want to do that, you're not comfortable doing that, That's totally understandable. One thing that you can do, of course, is to try to, for instance, find people online, language exchange friends that you can talk to, so you can just reduce your anxiety if that's what you have, right? If you feel anxious to just you don't want to talk to somebody in person because it makes you feel anxious. There are ways to find people. There's actually many websites that I like to find people online to just try to talk to them. So that can essentially help you diminish your anxiety. I have friends who are also anxious, even if there's someone on Skype and even if they're online, they're still anxious, and that's understandable as well. But try to keep what I said earlier in mind, that they're usually, happy to talk to people who are trying to learn their language. Language learning and speaking foreign languages should be something enjoyable. Talking, connecting with people. So embracing that idea hopefully can reduce some anxiety as well. And one thing too, focus on lots of listening, especially for conversations. And the ideal is to, like I always say, have text with audio. And if you do a lot of listening, and if you do, if you listen to a lot of conversations and you have the text that you can study, you will be more comfortable and you will have more confidence when you do have conversations because you have more exposure to conversations. So you're gonna have more confidence understanding, speaking, exactly because you have exposure to that material, to real conversations. So that's it for today, my friends, and good luck learning a new language.